Okay, so any requests for people or for anybody?
Can I do for myself? I'm not feeling that great. Can I do it? Was that not appropriate?
No, we wish you refuah, honestly.
For Hillel
All right,
Ben?
please. Should I get rid of this costochondritis? It is aggravating me. It's Hillel Ben Chapter.
Okay, so the first name for Hillel Ben Shabtai
Nice, thank you.
and other Cholim of Klal Israel. Okay, so the continue with the theme of suspecting virtuous people. Says Hashem punishes with physical illness those who suspect innocent people of wrongdoing. He explains that as a rule, Hashem, as master of compassion, gives wrongdoers the benefit of the doubt. And therefore, he usually forgoes punishing the body of a sinner and exacts initial retribution on his property. However, Hashem also judges people measure for measure. And where someone does not give others the benefit of the doubt and rashly suspects the worst of others, Hashem also withholds the benefit of the doubt. Therefore, he punishes and inflicts bodily harm right away as retribution for baseless suspicion of others. In Parshat Korach, the Kli Yakar suggests that the reason one who suspects others will be found guilty of the self-same offense of which he accused others is a function of the dictum, and you will do to him as he conspired to do to his fellow. Now that sounds similar to the Adi of Zomamim.
Yeah.
Damon?
Yeah, exactly.
According to the letter of the law, it is proper to do to the one who suspected his friend as he conspired in inverted commas to do to the accused. If so, he suffers the same punishment that would have been given to the accused if his suspicion had been proven true. So I think with Yom Kippur also, we should also try and give people benefit of the doubt. I mean, I'll give you an example. There's some people who are not refined, let's put it that way, who throw garbage outside like the complex and I clean it up. Sometimes it's like food and water, like disgusting. The dogs eat it. So I do it myself for pride. I don't know who it is. I see them, there's some homeless people, but I haven't seen them directly with my eyes. So I can't accuse them. Maybe it's someone else. So who knows who does this foolish thing. So yeah, so that's but there's and I went today to help somebody deliver summons to someone and to a company. There's a lady from the UK that I know from around. She asked us to help her, and the people, the company never paid her pension fund, and they deducted it. So we went to the office. Me and this Canadian guy went because she didn't want to do it herself, and we heard this lady speaking in the office that she didn't want us in the building. I mean, we delivered 3 out of the 4 summonses. So she said to me earlier, "Can't I use the evidence in court that she refused?" I said, "I never saw her with my eyes. You can't accuse. It wasn't. How do I know it was her? Can't accuse anyone of anything unless you see them with your own eyes. And even then, depends what it is. You have to give benefit of the doubt, especially if it's tzaddikim."
It depends what it is.
Yeah, sure.
Benefit of the doubt also implies that sometimes we judge guilt before innocence is proven as a risk mitigation factor, and you can't get rid of that. I'm sorry. Before you lend somebody money, you've got to know that they'll pay it back if you do need the money, and that lending it would put you into detriment. If you want to give it as a gift and you can afford to lose that money, fine. But otherwise, you need to know a track record. Are you accusing them of guilt? Well, the religion is based on the mother, because even then, you've got to look evidentially at what pops out of her, because the reality is the father could be a 5-minute wonder. You don't know how many men she slept with. So therefore we work it on evidential principles. The benefit of the doubt means that we don't plot vengeance based on lack of evidence or jump to conclusions that we could damage the person. But however, when you're putting yourself at risk, one has to make a correct assessment, and sometimes we have to err on the side of caution. That's all I'm saying. I think your point though is on Yom Kippur, we have to just generally give somebody the benefit of the doubt when they've done something wrong. But funny enough, there's a double rule book with a tzaddik and a rosha. So if somebody's known to be a rosha and they're suddenly very nice and sweet to you, and you shake their hand, count your fingers.
Yeah.
The converse is true. If a tzaddik is acting irrationally, you might realize that there might be something wrong. So we go on general record and not the incident itself. So, for example, there's a concept of emet and sheker. So what is emet? It's truth. It's seeing a broad perspective from the beginning to the middle to the end, of seeing all the factors involved in the situation. The word sheker has got the three letters next to each other, which means narrowly focusing just on the issue at hand. So sometimes when you see somebody's behavior or just see something in a particular incident without knowing context, we're judging in a false way, not having all the facts at our disposal.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me share the screen on that note. Kevin, thank you for teaching us. Really appreciate it as always. Okay, now I wanted to know who's working on a big screen. Is it Gavin or is it Arthur?
I'm on a big screen. Not sure. Also,
I got my glasses on.
Trying to get
Do I
some
have to
water.
go?
Hold for me one sec.
Arthur's on the phone. It looks like.
But I can read because I've got my glasses on. I should be able to see it. I need to go outside though. Otherwise, I'll be serving my client.
So I tell you what, Gavin, because
Just,
I
can I
want
just interrupt for one sec?
sure.
It's a mitzvah to eat tonight, right up until the fast begins. It's as a mitzvah. It's as big a mitzvah to eat and drink as it is to fast. So guys, eat as much as you can and have that in mind. Eating, drinking, but in lieu of the fast tomorrow.
So thank you.
Thank you. So Arthur's going to read half and Gavin's going to read half, starting with Gavin and then Arthur. So Arthur's going to read after a certain point. Gav, do you want to start?
Sure. Just tell me when to stop. The Mishnah lists sample payments for various types of attacks. One who boxes the ear of his fellow must give him a stellar. Rabbi Yehuda says, in the name of Rabbi Yossi Aglili, a mana, if he slapped him on his cheek, he gives him 200 zuz. If he did it with the back of his hand, which is even more humiliating, he gives him 400 zuz. If he pulled his ear, yanked his hair, spat at him, and his spittle reached him, removed his clothes from him, or bared the head of a woman in the marketplace, he gives him or her 400 zuz. This is the general rule. Everything depends on the victim's level of honor. Rabbi Akiva says, even the poorest among Israel are regarded as if they are aristocrats who have lost their wealth. They are all children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Arthur, carry on reading at this point.
Okay, let me just move your face out the way. Okay. The Mishnah continues with a related narrative. There was an incident in which someone bared the head of a woman in the marketplace. She came before Rav Akiva, and he obligated the perpetrator to give her 400 zuz. The perpetrator said to Rav Akiva, "My teacher, give me time." So Rav Akiva gave him time. The perpetrator lay in wait for her until he saw her standing at the entrance of her courtyard, at which point he broke a jug before her containing an izah worth of oil. She uncovered her head and began moistening her hands in the oil and placing her hands on her head to anoint her hair. He set up witnesses against her and came before Rav Akiva. The perpetrator said to him, "To this one must I give 400 zuz." Rav Akiva dismissed the man's argument and said to him, "You have said nothing. One who wounds himself, even though he is not permitted to do so, is exempt. Yet another who wounds him are liable. Also, one who cuts down his own saplings, even though he is not permitted to do so, is exempt from payment. Yet others who do the same thing are liable. Therefore, even though the woman humiliated herself in public, you who humiliated her are liable for the full amount.
Okay, good. So we're going to examine pieces of this. There was, when we're talking about boxing the ear of his fellow, we're saying, you know, the ear is a very, very, according to the Rambam, in his commentary, if you punch somebody in the nape of the neck or shout in the ear or hit their ear, what is it that you're actually doing by the ear specifically, guys? Affecting?
Sound of sense of sound.
Two things. That's correct. The one is sound. So we learned if one has become deaf, it's as if you've killed him in a way. So the penalty for that, you still pay actual damages, medical bills, pain, etc. But the humiliation of not being able to communicate with others is a big deal. The other thing that you affect is balance. It's mentioning balance, meaning that when somebody stumbles and can't stand up, they feel absolutely humiliated. So it's seen in quite a heavy light. That's why, obviously, Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav Yossi Aglili, a manor. Because what's a manor compared to a seller? So if we just look at a manor is 100 zuz. We also learned that initially when we're talking about the value of property with Tishrei versus Nisan, so a manor is 100 zuz. A seller is 4 zuz. Okay, so it's so stringent that he considers it 25 times the value in terms of payment, because a manor contains 25 seller as far as that's concerned, right? So it's quite a bit. So so far, we're talking about obviously if you slap somebody with the backhand, it's the way you hit it's the way that you would be hit. A slap is often seen as much more humiliating than a punch. And when you slap somebody with the back of the hand, it's seen as though that's how you would treat your servant. And it's got a different connotation as far as that's concerned. Gives him, if he pulls his ear, yanked his hair, spat on him, and his spittle reached him. The commentary said, if you spit on a person's body, you have to pay for the humiliation, but not if you spat on his clothing. It's a little bit different. However, if you spit on his clothing, you could be eligible for paying for staining, etc. Now, this issue about removing a cloak from a person, that's embarrassing. But the minute you bear naked flesh is when you're going to be paying very, very heavily. Obviously, if you take off somebody's shaitel, it's far more humiliating. And therefore, we come to the second part of the discussion, which Arthur read. Okay? So, all right, guys, there's an incident in which someone bared the head of a woman in the marketplace. She came before Rabbi Akiva, and he obligated the perpetrator to give her 400 zuz. Now, he thought that was an astronomical amount. So when he said, my teacher, give me time, he did it for two reasons. The first reason is it's a fortune of money, and he needed to come up with the money, because you remember 400 zuz, you could buy property. But what his real intention was to show that this woman was not a very modest woman. So he resented having to pay as much as 400 zuz. So what he did is he actually trapped her. He had, witnesses that were hiding, and he set up a trap. Now, there was a issa worth of oil, which is, in those days, you anointed your hair with like olive oil. It was like what kings did. So he knew she'd fall for it. So when he broke this jug containing that value of oil, she obviously started to massage her body and her hair, etc., because it was seen as, what do you call it, a conditioner to help regrow the hair and the roots. And when he set up witnesses against her, he did this in order to show Rabbi Akiva what, guys? What do you think he wanted to show Rabbi Akiva?
That she's somebody else, sorry.
No, Gavin, go for it. I'm happy.
No, I wasn't listening. I didn't hear every single word you said, but I think I got the gist of it. Just wanted to show that she's not such a decent, she's not such a high-standing woman.
Yes, exactly. So why must he give her 400 was the equivalent of a property in Santon when she's not super sneers? What she did is of her own volition, in order to massage her hair and her body, she took off her hair covering and she started to take that oil and use that opportunity to massage her scalp and cover herself with the healing properties of the oil. So he's saying, listen, why must I give this little woman 400 zuz? It's going to bankrupt me. And this isn't a very sneers woman. Clearly, if she undid her hair by her own volition, then why would she be that embarrassed if I exposed her hair? It's not like a woman that's the Bubby Sala's wife or daughter or something else. Then you can understand. But this isn't somebody holding at such a level. So that's his exact argument. And Rabbi Akiva said to him, listen, you haven't said anything to me that's profound, because you have people that injure themselves. And you're not allowed to do a self-harm or self-injury. But you don't pay yourself. If you injure yourself, the pain is enough. You don't pay yourself. Okay? If you cut down your own trees or cause yourself financial devastation, you don't pay yourself. You've already suffered the loss of your stupidity. So what you're telling me is not just because somebody is feeling depressed or suicidal. Maybe there's a teenage girl that's feeling like suicidal and she does wrist cutting or burns herself or whatever to cry, to crave attention or get help or something like that, and she's not 100% and suffers from depression, okay? And she gets bullied by her peers. And her peers hold her down and then burn her with a cigarette and put lipstick all over her with bad words. When it comes to these teenage girls say, but what are you talking about? At the end of the day, she does this to herself. She humiliates herself, etc. And any psychiatrist would say, listen, we're dealing with it. Whatever she does to herself, she does. But that doesn't give you the right to abuse her. And that's what Rabbi Akiva was getting at. Do you get what I'm saying? A person's lower standards themselves do not give you the right to damage them with those lower standards. Okay, so you're fully culpable. Okay, so let's get into the main Gemara. And if we learn, it says the Mishnah states that for a blow to the ear, Rav Yossi Haglili obligates the perpetrator to pay a manna, which is 100 zuz. So they inquired, did we learn in our Mishnah a Tyrian manna, or did we learn in our Mishnah a provincial manna? Arthur, what is that? You've done revision. Right.
I actually don't know I haven't done the revision for the manner.
Okay, so we did it before.
Yeah.
We did it before in the end of before we got to the third book, but I'll just revise because you can't be expected to remember that far back. I just thought you might have been a bit of ahead of the game. Kevin, do you know? Because you
I know that when we did it a while ago. I can't remember what the difference is.
Listen, we can't remember the day before. So.
Fair enough. So listen, guys, there are two types of currencies that existed in Talmudic times. The one was the Kesef Tzurei, which is a Tyrian currency. It's a national currency, okay, of Tyria. Then you had a Kesef Medina. So Medina is what you call a provincial currency. It's more localized. So Tyrian coins contained 8 times as much silver as provincial coins because they had to hold their currency if they were used as coins of trade against other currencies. Compared to provincial coins, which were actually composed of 1 part silver and 7 parts copper. Tyrian coins were pure silver. So obviously the value was 8 times as much. So what does it mean? It means that according to our Mishnah, that if you say that the payment is a Tyrian manner, it would mean that the perpetrator must pay the equivalent of 100 zuz. If the Mishnah referred to a provincial manner, it would mean he only pays 12.5 zuz, because 12.5 zuz times 8, because of the copper distribution, is what? It's exactly 100. So that's the question: is what currency do you have to pay in terms of the penalty for boxing somebody's ear? Okay, so Rav Yossi Aglili says, go give the man a Tyrian manner. But before he said that, he said something strange. Victim came before Rav Yehuda and Nasiya. Rav Yehuda and Nasiya said to the assailant, here am I, and here is Rav Yossi Aglili. Go give the man a Tyrian manner. So what is he introducing himself and one of the other greats to this assailant for? You know, it's not general that the judges say, listen, we'd like to make introductions, etc. Anyway, the bottom line is there's different issues we're going to learn from that. But the main thing that we're learning now is that the currency in terms of payment is heavy. It's 100 zuz. It's a Tyrian manner because it's eight parts. It's eight parts silver, not 1 part silver and 7 part copper. So the Gemara says, indeed, conclude from this it's a Tyrian manner. So obviously, having resolved that inquiry, the Gemara is looking at this other peculiar statement of Rav Yehuda Nasiya itself. What did he mean, here am I, and here's Rav Yossi Aglili? So the Gemara is going to make the suggestion, and it immediately challenges the suggestion. If you say that this is what Rav Yehuda Nasiya was saying to the assailant, here am I, who saw you strike the man. In other words, saw him box him on the ears. And here's Rav Yossi Aglili, who says that the payment should be a Tyrian manner. Go give him a Tyrian manner. Okay? In other words, with the first half of the statement, here am I, Rav Yehuda Nasiya meant, with my own eyes, I saw you box that man's ear. So I don't need to hear any testimony from witnesses to this effect. And with the words, and here's Rav Yossi Aglili, Rav Yehuda Nasiya is meant to explain how he arrived at the amount he was ordering the assailant to pay, because obviously the question in terms of currency was from his fellow judge and colleague. So there he was following the opinion of Rav Yossi Aglili, who ruled that for boxing another person's ear, you pay a Tyrian manner, which is 100 zuz. So you might say, okay, so something is odd. The one thing that's odd is generally 3 judges are required to try monetary cases. Yeah, Rav Yehuda Nasiya apparently took this upon himself to judge it. So even if he witnessed it, how could one person judge the case? That's the first issue. About referring to his colleague in terms of the amount doesn't mean his colleague was judging the case. It meant he just knew penalties regarding financial sums, compensations required. But the reason why Rav Yehuda Nasiya could do such a thing is he was what you call Lerabin. It's discussed in the 5th daf of Sanhedrin. It's like one of the few halachic experts that can be empowered to judge the case on his own. He's widely recognized. You might have 1 or 2 in the whole generation. Okay? So he could do it. So that was the first problem solved. How can one person judge a case? But a more serious issue is, how can one person become judge and jury? Meaning, how can you say that a witness can become a judge? In other words, that a judge can rule on a case based on his own witnessing of the event. Because why? It was taught in a brisa, a Sanhedrin that saw someone kill a person, adjudicate the matter in the following manner. Some of the judges are made witnesses, and some of them are made judges. These are the words of Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Akiva says, all of them are potential witnesses since they all saw the murder, and the rule is a potential witness may not be made a judge for that case. Okay, so let's just get the issue clear. It's according to Rabbi Akiva is saying that the minute you witness an incident, you become immediately prejudiced And even if what you witness you think is correct, and you might be correct, this leaves the defendant at a distinct disadvantage, and therefore the judge who witnesses such an incident would have to recuse himself, and he can no longer judge the matter. That's according to Rabbi Akiva. Now, according to Rabbi Tarfon, it's a little bit different. Listen carefully. He said, a Sanhedrin that saw someone kill a person adjudicate the matter in the following manner. Some of the judges are made witnesses, and some of them are made judges. Meaning, of all the judges, 2 of the judges have to say this guy that decided to commit a murder was drunk. And in his stupidity, he decided to murder the guy outside. The legal officers of a well-known firm, which happened to have a couple of judges convening on a matter, and the guy was so stupid and drunk, he killed the person at the very wrong time with the very wrong people witnessing him. Judges, of all things. So there was a whole convention of judges, and that's where he decides to murder the person because he's fraught drunk. So talk about a lousy judgment call. So what we are saying is, if there's that case, 2 of the judges have to stand up and testify before the others as to the murder. And the remaining judges try the case. So what we see Rabbi Tarfon is saying is that if you need 2 witnesses, those witnesses that make a public testimony can no longer change their role and act as judges, because testifying witnesses may not serve as judges for the same case. But the remaining judges, even they can judge the case, even though they could have seen the murder themselves. They just can't serve the dual role of being witness and judge. And this is a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah 26a. So obviously the Bav is what you call a fictitious scenario if it's talking about that there are 5 judges that happen to witness the case, that you have to have 2 official witnesses, and the 3 others would be judges, because you need 3 judges to judge a case. So we're saying, obviously, we're talking purely here about theory. If Kevin, you often ask, well, when was such a thing happen? We're just at this point discussing the theory of it. There's a slightly different issue, and that issue is as follows, is that how can there be 3 judges after to a murder? Because we learned in Sanhedrin that you need 23 judges to judge a homicide case. Financial and monetary matters, you need 3 judges. But a murder, you need 23. So why would they use an example of 5 judges witnessed the event, 2 acted as witnesses, and 3 convened the cases in their capacity as judge? Any idea, guys?
What about the 2 and the 3? Like 2 judges, 3 witnesses, 23.
Cute, but that's
Thinking out the box.
but you're going to put them in the coffin box with that logic. So yeah.
Okay.
So Gavin, we covered this in Sanhedrin. This I am going to get.
I know this rings a bell. I remember this 3. I think there's certain times when is it a provisional? It's a final case. All these cases are final. It doesn't go up the line, does it?
Okay, so we dealt with this issue twice. Once where you and Ian Shapiro had a discussion, and once relatively recently when we talked about Sota. So this is the bottom line. Is there 2 different opinions? What a shock. But the one opinion states that although you need 23 judges to judge a case, to check eligibility of witnesses, you only need 3 judges. So in other words, the murder trial will happen, but we need to check that these 2 witnesses are in fact cogent witnesses that have their ducks in a row, and that they can serve as witnesses in the murder trial. And therefore, we can check the eligibility as legitimate witnesses with only 3 witnesses before they go into a murder trial of 23, with them as the correct witnesses.
I did say that, not exactly, but I did say it's a preliminary work.
No, but Gavin, it was
I wasn't specific.
okay. One has to be a little.
No, fair enough. I'm just saying I was in the right direction. I didn't quite.
Listen, you were absolutely in the right direction. Like from the way from Johannesburg to Durban, you were definitely in the right direction. I just didn't know where your destination was going, but you were in the right direction, and that's a pretty good start. And to have the schus to learn with Rav Simcha, you're definitely in the right direction. So the one is saying, according to Rabbi Akiva, you cannot be, if you witness an event, you've got to recuse yourself as a judge. According to Rabbi Tarfon, you don't have to. You just can't act as witness and judge. Okay? Now, let me just cover a little bit of ground quickly. So the question is,
if there's 4 witnesses, one second. If there's 4 witnesses, then the 2 judges can remain judges. They don't need to be witnesses.
Well, even no.
I presume.
No, because you need 3 judges to judge a case, like the case we're talking about is in the case of assault. You need 3 judges for corporal punishment or monetary cases, not murder. We referred to the murder case in Sanhedrin to get our source, but this was a case of boxing somebody on the ears. So then you need 3 judges and 2 witnesses. So this was a fictitious case and say 5 judges happen to witness the event. Therefore, we can take 2 of those judges to act as a witness and testify as to what they saw, and 3 judges to adjudicate the case.
Okay, no, sorry, I was throwing in something. I was just messing it up. Carry on.
No problem. So far, Rabbi Tarfon said only that some of them are made witnesses and some of them are made judges. The fact that the judges themselves also witnessed the crime does not disqualify them from trying the case, provided that they hear testimony about the incident from other witnesses. This is according to Rabbi Tarfon. But the bigger question is, but that a witness can act as a judge based on his own sightings of the incident, Rabbi Tarfon did not say. So this is the thing, is that even Rabbi Tarfon says you cannot be a witness and judge. He's saying you don't have to recuse yourself, and if you saw it, you can still judge the case, or you can choose to be the witness in the case, but you cannot do both. Whereas Rabbi Akiva said the minute you witness it, you have to recuse yourself as a judge. But Rabbi Tarfon did not go as far as saying that you can act as witness and judge. That he did not say. So the question arises, how can Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya act as a judge based on his own observation of the assault of watching this perpetrator box somebody's ears? In regard to what case was the Brisa taught, where they saw the incident at night, where they were incapable of trying the case. So what I'm going to say to you is, guys, we've got a minute left. We're going to go through how Rav Nasiya could actually end up being witness as well as judge, because it seems to contradict Rabbi Tarfon. Obviously Rabbi Akiva, but even Rabbi Tarfon would says you can't pick up both the roles. I hope this has been helpful. Speaking of roles, I'm going to pick up one and have my dinner now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Gav, I'll give you a call separately now.
100%.